And welcome to this meeting of the Family Services Select Committee. I am Councillor Will Pascal, Chair of the Family Services Select Committee, and will be chairing tonight's meeting. The meeting is not being streamed live on YouTube, however, it is being recorded and will be available to watch back at a later date, when members of the public and the media are welcome to watch the meeting remotely and to listen to the discussion that took place. Now I would like to welcome to all those in Committee Room 1, Kensington Town Hall, and ask before we proceed with the meeting, can everybody please check your mobiles and other devices and make sure that we're on silent or switched off or some such. Thank you. Now we will observe 72 seconds of silence to remember those who lost their lives in the Grenfell tragedy. Thank you. Thank you. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Abdullahi Noor, Ariella Ardron, Jackie Birdie, Nicholas Frios, Rebecca Timms, and Kathleen Williams. And Councillors Brooks and Taylor Smith, the relevant lead members, have also sent apologies. I know it's a busy time of year, but we miss them sadly they're not all here. I'm charged to ask. We have also Sonia. No word at all. Right. Okay. Well, hopefully she'll come, and even if she's late. And just to check, we are therefore for it. Yeah. Thank you. I'm charged to ask if any member has any interest to declare. Minutes of the previous meeting. Firstly, I'd like to ask Luke. The actions that have been completed have obviously been completed, but anything not completed in terms of actions, presumably they've been put on the action tracker. That's correct. Thank you. We also have an amended draft of the minutes which has been circulated to the committee. Do members agree with the amended minutes to be signed as a correct record? Agreed, Chairman. Thank you very much. So we're going to slightly reorder the papers as being published because Sarah Newman is delayed in another place. And we're going to first of all take the adults service and the registrar service first, which is by welcome Stephen and Harriet for coming to see us. This report provides details of children's budget, including upturn and 25/6 and the draft 26/7 growth and savings. It provides details in the various parts of the service, and we're going to, as I said, address adult now. Harriet, perhaps you'd like to go first and just summarise very key points in your area.
So adult learning service is a fully funded service from the GLA. So we get funding from adult skills funding. We get £1.6 million annually. We had a 3-year budget of multiplied funding from UK SPF, which has just finished in March 2025. So that's our funding so far. We run a framework and we fund organisations to do delivery on our behalf, delivering to people who are over 19. Largest proportion of our learners are 25 to 59. We have then the next biggest group is 60 plus, and the smallest group are the 19 to 25. And I think that that's largely because there's a lot of work elsewhere in the borough for younger people. So we're delivering lots of different stuff, lots of English speakers of other languages, lots of digital skills provision, growing in arts provision. So it's a mixture of stuff that is focused on having people get socially interested back in learning, and also in stuff like things that will help them get towards work. Isn't necessarily it's their first step generally towards work. And we started a framework 2 years ago because we were failing to meet our full allocations post pandemic. In the last 2 years with the framework, we've managed to meet the allocation. We meet about 3,000 learners annually, and that's a sort of we had a 1.65% budget cut this year, and there will be a subsequent 1.65% budget cut next academic year, and that's a national budget cut to adult learning funding from the DFE to the GLA to us. And it's sort of handed down like that. We were hopeful in the budget that there wouldn't be any further cuts, and there weren't, but equally there was no growth. So as we carry along, our budget is constrained by not growing, and so the cost of living or all that kind of stuff is subsumed within the monies that we've got. So we're struggling to try to continue growing the numbers of learners that we meet, but that's against a budget which is not growing.
Okay, thank you very much. Will, would you like to start with a question?
No, I certainly can.
Well, anybody opposite like to ask a question?
Harriet, thank you for what you said. I would find it helpful to know places where you do the activities we do, so that I can envisage where they are.
Okay, so
Because the reality is that all of us probably know of them.
Yeah.
But being able to place the activities out there with what you're actually doing would be really helpful.
So we are funding 15 organisations, some of which are headquartered in the borough. So Westway Trust, Nova New Opportunities.
Yep.
We lost Clement James Centre this last year. They stopped working for us. Morley College is one of the ones. That's our biggest contract.
Yeah.
We also are delivering in places like libraries. So we have a contract with libraries to deliver across all of their sites. We also have some work that we're doing with Housing and Employment Service, and they deliver here, I believe, as long as also outside. We work from a number of different schools, so Homefield House and some of the ones down in the south of the borough. We have some work that goes on with the big local. Also Open Age, so they have a site in Sloane Square, and they also work out of the St Charles Hospital.
No, I know. You
others.
mentioned Clement James, and my wife used to work there.
I
Maybe you've come across that, but now I can exactly. And I know of some of the issues in general with central government and what you're doing. How similar are the problems that we've got here in Kensington to what?
I think that the thing that we do, which is different to both of those two boroughs, is that we don't have any direct delivery centre. So we don't have an adult learning centre directly. We fund others to do the delivery on our behalf, but we have to monitor that and make sure that it's meeting the standards that is expected. So our team is very small. It means that we don't have massive overheads as a council itself to run a building and run a set of teachers and have a big set of overheads like that. But what we do have to do is spend a lot more time than probably out and about doing a lot more meetings and ensuring that standards are meeting, because we have Ofsted standards to meet as well as funding standards to meet. So that's we can give more of the money to the providers, but we are then requiring to do lots more monitoring of them.
Thank you. Have fun with you. Could I therefore ask a question which was around roughly what number of people you have as a cohort overall?
So
Yeah,
overall in a year, it's approximately 3,000 people.
Yeah.
And it's about 3,000 people doing about 4,000 enrolments across about 412 courses that are delivered over the academic year. And so that's the thing which we are delivering now more qualifications courses than we used to when I first got here. And so to deliver a qualification costs more than to deliver a non-qualified course. So while we do more qualifications and fewer non-qualifications, we shrink the number of people that we can meet.
Yeah.
If you understand.
Allied to that, I suppose, how do you measure? Well, I mean, maybe getting a qualification is the answer to this question, but how do you measure outcomes and sort of what metrics do you measure?
So we look at achievement. So achievement is a measure which is of the people who began, how many got to the end and how many actually achieved what they set out to do by doing the course. And so we have metrics on enrolments, we have metrics on those that complete, and we have metrics on achievement.
Right. And presumably a subset of that is courses that lead, as you said at the beginning, towards work. Do you also measure the success of getting into work as well?
We don't do that as much as we measure progress. So what do they progress into? And some people will progress to work, but not everybody is at that stage. Some of them are just beginning their journey towards work. So we have some employability programs, and we will look at how many people went through one of those programs and got into work. Yeah. It's a lot more anecdotal than we.
So I suppose in sort of government speak, if they started as a need, one of the measures of success is they're no longer a need.
They're no longer a need. So then a lot of them would be perhaps doing nothing, but are now in learning.
Yeah.
We have some people who are signing on, and so that they would be doing a multitude of things to try to get work, one of which would be doing courses with us.
Yeah. And finally, do you think there's, in the climate of you being constrained financially, do you think there's opportunity for you to work closer with some of your partners and get more alignment and integration between the different partners that are working together?
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that we're doing, which I think is beneficial, is working with more teams within the council. So in the last year, we've started working with housing and employment. We grew our libraries provision, and we're now starting to work with Leighton House Museum, all of whom are directly relating to getting actual RBKC residents and working with them directly. So I think that that's a strength for us.
They have a shared problem in the sense that they're under financial pressure as well. So it pays them as well as you.
Yeah. And so we paid libraries, so it was something like £75,000 to do delivery last year. And so it will be a similar amount this year. So I think that that's a benefit to constraints for council budgets.
Okay.
It also helps us, we can then work with people who, so like housing employment teams definitely are working with the most in need in the borough. They did a multiplied program for us, which was about numeracy. So it was a program that supported people who were at risk of falling into arrears to do budget management programs.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Trinity.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. You said that you got 412 courses. So has that increased over the last couple of years, or has it reduced?
So yeah, within the period of time that we are doing the framework, so that was the last 2 years. Yes, it increased a small amount, but then with
percentage terms,
I've forgotten that. I'm sorry. It's I can tell you later.
Yeah.
It's again, it's the thing of when we fund non-accredited programs at a rate of £285 per person. qualifications programs are anything between 330 up to 1,000 sometimes, because they get uplift for different types of people. So if they have no qualifications already, if we're doing more qualifications, the amount of money that we can spend across everybody, it's not even. So the more qualifications we do, which I think are more beneficial to people to come out with an actual qualification at the end.
Right.
That's a provable thing they can take off to employers or others.
Right.
But
you.
those are more expensive.
Yeah, but you don't, and besides what the chair has already asked, there's no data that actually, you don't have data that proves how effective they are. And is it really necessary to have all 412 courses? And what is the uptake?
The uptake is pretty good. I have got the data. It's not in my head.
Okay.
Sorry. But we do a self-assessment every year, which has a massive amount of data about who the people were, the demographics of them.
And do we have any benchmarks? Do we compare to other providers?
We compare ourselves to other providers like ourselves. We compare ourselves to so that and the targets that we're driven are on the achievement target of 90%, retention target of 90%. You know, so against those we are good.
Perhaps we could have an update, maybe in years' time, not just as is now, but he's taking up that point together with the point of collaboration with other department bodies and so on. Because it would seem that as financial pressure is going across everybody, you can improve the efficiency, you can probably also improve some of the outcomes at the same time.
And the effectiveness of
Yeah, the effectiveness, yeah. And
Because
maybe focus more
towards
towards.
balance. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be good to have a proper data of, are they fully employed and is it worth its while?
And to take the point was made, that these aren't always job qualifications as such,
Sure.
leading directly to jobs, but if they've improved the pathway to jobs for people who need on get towards work, that helps. So
Thank you, Chair.
thank you very much indeed, Harriet. Stephen, perhaps you could take us in parallel through your services, the registrar services.
Absolutely. So that's the registrar service
That's
based at Chelsea on Town Hall. We receive no funding other than the sort of standard funding that comes from local, from central government to local governments to run, part of which there's responsibility for the council to run a civil registration service. We can, of course, apply fees and charges. Some of those are set by HM Treasury, so they're the same across the country, and others can be done on a cost recovery basis, namely ceremonies. So you'll be aware that we're tasked with the duty to register all births, deaths, stillbirths, marriages, civil partnership, citizenship, issue all certificates, licensing of marriage venues, be they civil or religious, all within Kensington and Chelsea. And we have within that an opportunity to generate a healthy revenue if you run a successful business from weddings, because these are the ones where the local authority can set its own fees and charges based on a cost recovery basis. So we're in a very favourable position where we've got Chelsea Old Town Hall to a place where it's very, very desirable. The numbers of ceremonies are going up and up every single year, and that helps us to generate a very healthy revenue surplus in which we can continue to run a high quality service across the board, so not just for ceremonies.
Thank you very much. I think if I could kick off with a question, do you feel, I know there's been some, you've intimated some great work there and so on, but do you have all the tools you need to fulfill your mission of sustaining the service and growing it, including, you know, secure IT and all that kind of thing?
We feel that we have the technology we need, I suppose, when it's working. Obviously, we rely on the council's standard offer, and you know that seems to work for us absolutely fine. We do introduce additional things as well, so we have an in-house sort of music system, a live streaming system that allows us to upsell further to customers for extra revenue generation that we've introduced ourselves, for example. But overall, in terms of technology, yes, I would say we have what we need. We're very grateful for the investment that we've received from the capital recently refurbished, that was back in 2023. That has been one of the key factors that's helped us push our ceremonies up from around 1,800 to 3,000 this financial year, and still growing, which is a phenomenal increase. I guess the maintenance of those rooms again does rely on having effective contracts in place from the council in terms of facilities management, because it's very important that things are working there and things are kept clean. So we just rely on the usual in-house services. Sometimes there is some challenge. We are working with the Kings Road bid to see what they're doing in terms of maintaining the cleanliness of the area and what supplies they're using. So we're working with facilities management at the moment to see if there's anything extra that we can get as part of that. But overall, I would say that yes, we do have what we need, apart from space. So in answer to the question, can we maintain it? Yes, I feel that we can with the current way it's being run. What we'd like to do is to grow it even further, to increase the revenue. However, we are restricted by the fact we only have 3 rooms there, and we're almost fully booked to absolute capacity now and having to turn people away. So if we want to grow it further and generate more revenue, we need more space. So that is the next thing to look at, and that is being
Okay.
at the moment.
So where have you eyed up?
Sorry.
Where have you eyed up?
Good question. So there is a plan to see whether there is space from the library that we're attached to turn a small part of that into an additional ceremony. So libraries are aware of this, and I know that our legal member councillor King Taylor Smith is very supportive of this. We have a draft business case ready to go, and we're just waiting for the final figures from the quantity surveyors on how much it might cost to do that.
Presumably you've got a good track record of what you could generate out of that if you had that space.
Yes,
Part of the business case, right?
yes, absolutely.
Hey, on round, sorry.
Very quick question. In your figures, do you include the figures for the maintenance, the regular maintenance of the 3 ceremony rooms? Because it needs to look pretty.
In the figures that you're seeing there, no, because those would usually come under what we would call as the uncontrollable budget. However,
I would be uncontrollable. Surely you would have some forecast of what
it's because we don't pay for them as a service out of our usual budget.
Okay.
So I do not see those going in and out of the budget. However, I am able to work with our finance business partner to understand what those are in full, and to make sure that the cost of all these uncontrollable charges are factored into the fees and charges that we're setting, so that when we set fees on a cost recovery basis, they're truly cost recoverable.
So you include the figures then?
We do.
I think this is a very important
Yes.
question, and beyond just the meeting we're in now to the budget working group. One of the factors in all of the activities of the council is this unmentioned uncontrollable costs.
Yeah.
So
What are they?
structurally, one of the questions that we might make as a recommendation from today to your, because Pretty chairs the budget working group on the opioid scrutiny committee. So one of the things we might recommend is that the OSC budget working group looks at uncontrollable costs across the board, not just in this particular area, because it's something that it's a sort of missing partner in the budget figures that we see almost everywhere. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a very useful point. So I think you've got a question.
Maybe just a brief question in relation to saying you're sort of booked to capacity and having to turn people away. It might not be possible, but to increase the fees and charges to a point where you're sort of consistently getting sort of 80 to 90% more. So just because if to my mind, if there's so many people applying that you're having to turn people away, it means the price is too low. Maybe that's not correct.
We've got to operate within a framework of making sure that we are they're all transparent with our fees and charges. They are covering the costs associated with delivering a registration service. And for that reason, we take into consideration those uncontrollable costs. But we also need to make sure that we price them at just the right level, that we don't put people off. So where we are is we're at the upper end of the London benchmarking of fees and charges, but not right at the very top. There's a risk in putting it too high that it might have a detrimental effect. However, what I would say is that invariably, year after year, the fees and charges do go up on the basis that taking into consideration the demand on the building, but also that we've got still some way to go until we cover all the uncontrollable costs as well. So they are forever sort of going up in that direction. I can't really see a point at which point they would come down. So we've got to be careful as well, because we don't want to shoot them up too much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if I could summarise briefly, I called out this, if others agree, three recommendations. One being that adults should have a look at, although you may be doing some of this already, but look further at the way in which you collaborate and work with partners to see if the benefits to be accrued. It's very interesting that you've got a different model to Dennis with the development and a more of a matrix model rather than an establishment model. So it'd be interesting to see out of that exploring as to what benefits you get and further benefits you get out of that. I think on the registrar's thing, the specific point on more space, as long as it doesn't spoil the library situation for the local community, it would be a useful reliant a small amount of space if this case adds up. And the third one is that the identification of uncontrollable costs. We'd like to see it in your area, but also we pass it on as a recommendation to the OSC Budget Working Group as something to be looked more generically across the local council. So with that, I'd like to thank.
Sorry. You can ask me on.
No, I haven't asked you yet.
And I did want to ask a question, if that's all right. No, that's fine. I just wanted to ask about the couple of things. One is the £1 million pound of contingency that essentially that's put in. I think we discuss this every year, where that figure comes from, and particularly in the context, there are two items of reductions, both in terms of the amount of care given to the high cost cases and the number of them, sort of pushing downwards, and yet we've got £1 million there of extra spending suggested as a contingency.
Mary, which
I think you're related talking to children's services.
We haven't
but thanks for the heads up on the question.
Yes, so you can absolutely see me up on that one. I've got another question. Let's add. I'm
sorry for cutting you off, but you have said you've got another question.
Sorry?
You got another question?
Well, no, I'm going to hold my fire now.
Okay.
I'm going to give all my secrets away.
But can I say thank you to Harriet and thank you to Steve, and welcome to Sarah for joining us. I know you've had a very important duty elsewhere, which has detained you, so we thank you for looking after that without mentioning it.
Thank
and
you.
Also, thank you for coming here to this. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Time for a reshuffle, slightly.
Harry,
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amit and Anita and Serge. I'd like to just say one thing that before we get into this paper, that there wasn't any explicit mention of transformations in this paper. And I think that one of the things that we want to recommend out of this paper is that on the budget working group, again, that the contribution of transformations, which I know you do,
Yes.
they haven't been, they've been under a bushel.
Okay.
Right. So perhaps you'd like to lead us essential points in this paper. Usual thing, we've read the papers and so on. But
Yeah, okay, I'll just pull out the highlights then. So in children's services, we have a controllable budget of approximately 36.8 million. In previous years, spending has broadly been in line with the budget. Over the last 4 years, we've successfully delivered £5.4 million worth of savings, effectively reducing the budget by 30%. This year, for the first time, we're forecasting an overspend. That overspend is almost 2 million. This relates mostly to the costs associated with care, and there's a paper later tonight that deals with some of that. I guess delivering savings for children's services is getting more and more challenging. We have identified some very real possibilities in the young people who are transitioning from children's services into adult services, and that's almost a million. We have identified another 900K's worth of savings moving our social care service from a sovereign service into a by-borough arrangement in line with our education service, and more services by looking at how we're commissioning placements for children in care and care leavers, working on a regional basis, pan-London, to share information around need so that we can commission more intelligently, and also looking at our in-house provision, where we've been very successful in creating more in-house provision for care leavers and bringing down the costs. I guess the only other thing to add is that we have got a growth bid in of 1 million, and that relates to the increasing numbers of care leavers and the real costs associated with meeting their needs. I'll pause there and invite any questions.
Okay, Will, would you like to start off?
Yes, perhaps just a question in relation to the inflation modelling. So sort of paragraph 2.3. Just note you've mentioned the level inflation is running at in relation to sort of CPI, RPI, twice the Bank of England's target 2%, but of course that's based on an average basket of consumer goods. I'd anticipate in this area there are a number of costs that are probably running well above 4% inflation level. Can you just speak a bit further detail about sort of forecasting that has been done on that?
I'll pass that over to my finance colleagues, who will be much more expert in that area than I will.
Stan.
Yeah, so the amount mentioned in 2.3 is kind of that whole section's around how the budget, the modelling for the budget and the budget council. We are looking at the children's services patient, and yeah, you're right, it is running higher than 2%. But that would be that would form part of the inflation that would be held corporately to be drawn on when needed, when we know what the actual increases in costs will get to the next year. But thank you.
Thank you. If I could go to Dave, because you specifically asked if you could ask a question in our pre-meet, and it was around the area of we had some 25/6 papers, figures,
Yeah.
sort of 24/5 and some 25/6. We're talking, you wanted to ask something about.
I find it really helpful to get an understanding at the level that I can understand of what things look like in 2025/6, 26/7 and 27/8, given the level of savings we're going to have to make. What does service provision look like if we're going to have to make the savings of what, roughly 5 million?
Yeah.
And politics is all about priorities.
Of course.
So what is really important to us, that which is ultimately to you, Sarah, and to Catherine,
Yeah.
that we maintain, because if you slice, it's not going to work.
So those savings I referenced at the outset in terms of million from children with disabilities transferring into adult social care, 900K by creating a by-borough social care service, and more in-house provision for that care leavers, whilst working on a regional pan-London basis to commission more intelligently for looked after children, those savings are so it breaks down. I think it's almost 2.4 million for next year, and then 1.6 million over the next 2 years. Probably with some pressure on us to deliver more in future years.
And are they real and deliverable? And do you feel, if I'm pressing you now quite hard, which I want to be,
Yeah.
that they are deliverable and meaningful? Or are you just putting out the best that you can so that temporarily some pressure is taken off?
That's an interesting question. Thank you, David. So what I can say is we do have a good record at delivering the savings that we put forward. I think we've got one of the highest records of delivering our savings across the council. So we do put a lot of thought into what we can do. Certainly the transition piece, we've identified real situations that we can move on in, real young people who, by moving into adult services earlier and at pace, will produce that level of savings. So that's
without them incurring any less good thing on the right way of receiving.
So I mean, I think it's generally well known that costs in the children's social care market are excessive, and actually costs in the adult care market are far less. I think our adult services have been graded as outstanding, and so I think we have to presume the provision is good, and therefore it's about working together on that pathway to make the transition happen quicker. And again, the moving to a by-borough social care service, those savings are real savings as we create more efficiencies across the management levels in how we deliver the service. I'd like to think we could retain the quality whilst we move to that model, and we'll be doing everything we can to ensure we do that. Again, creating placements for care leavers, we're doing that, and we know it saves us money. So that's just about doing more of it. So we believe that's very real. I guess the one area that is potentially more uncertain is working on a pan-London footprint. All London boroughs have signed up to creating a regional care cooperative. In Manchester and in the southeast, they're achieving significant savings by commissioning on a more intelligent basis, because they're sharing information across a broader footprint, which means that actually you can commission on a large footprint.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You have a question? No, Tracy.
Very quickly. Thank you for that, Sarah. I only a couple of David's already asked my question. The Sen transport, I thought that's page 13, 1.8. I thought there was a saving of roughly 300,000, but the district says 139,000. Is that correct?
So there was previously a saving of 300,000.
So this is this quarter, is it?
That was this year. So now we're putting, we're increasing that proposed saving for future years. Yes, because there has been, as it's says, there's been success in the personal transport budgets.
Right. Okay. So that's okay.
So you're building on success. Thank you.
Okay. And one final one. The page 14, 4.8. The other cross-cutting growth and saving proposals. I mean, that's quite a handsome amount. I mean, what proportion of that is achievable?
So I believe that is across the council,
So what
rather
percentages?
than specifically children's services.
Yes. So what percentage would you allocate to yourselves? of that
That's still
saving?
being worked on. That's why each one of these select committees have got the total amount. So the
Right.
detail behind it is still being worked on. So that
So you have no idea what, okay, all right. Thank you, Chair.
Well, your advice for it.
Yes, but maybe just a brief question, if I may, kind of just on 3.6, just specifically in relation to the increasing cost and number of high cost placements with 14 looked after children. Seems like that's a trend that has increased quite significantly in a small space of time. So my two questions are: A, do you know what's driving that trend? And B, do you have any forecast or any prediction? Is it going to stay stable? Is it going to decrease? Is it going to increase? It's probably very difficult to know.
This is an issue nationally. The government has set up a working group to understand what we might do about it. Really interestingly, England isn't the only country that's got itself into this position with the children's social care market. Our numbers haven't changed. Our numbers of looked after children are relatively stable and low in comparison with England averages and London averages. But the reality is the cost of care is rising because demand is supply is shrinking, and that shrinking supply is pushing up the cost of care. We knew that this was going to be an issue because of the regulations that Ofsted introduced around 16 and 17-year-old placements. There are approximately 60 children for every secure bed in the country. Lots of people have, lots of local authorities, including us, have closed our children's homes or their children's homes because it's so difficult to keep them open with the level of regulation that's applied to us. And to make children's homes work, you need to manage at least 5, because you need to be managing, moving staff around, ensuring that the children who you're placing can be placed alongside each other. And so that makes it so difficult for small boroughs like us, which is why now we're working on a wider footprint. We've been working with West London through the West London Alliance. We're supporting Hounslow with a project to build a children's home. They've got money from the DFE. We'll have sort of, for want of a better word, first dibs on placements. There's another borough in West London who's also developing provision again that will allow us to, if that borough can't fulfil all the placements, it will go out to the wider West London footprint first.
We are, of course, going back to this.
We are coming
on
back
the
to
local
it,
paper.
absolutely.
But just to come back on a point you made about the national
Yeah.
body beginning perhaps to think about it, it's very interesting to read in the latest version of the LGA's first magazine, a paragraph that basically says that the Chancellor's announcement a budget, the government would absorb send costs from 28-29.
Yeah.
This does not address the existing deficits, now more than 4 billion, projected to rise to 6 billion by 2026. That's national figures. And these deficits put systemic risk that no council can resolve on their own. And the question, I suppose, I think the thing, it's not really a question to you, it's a question that we need to come out of this with a recommendation of some sort, is to try to find out, or ask you to try to find out whether they're serious about this, or whether they just kick the can down the proverbial, So, Luke, if you could come up with a properly worded recommendation about finding out more about the real intent of government and the real progress, and then ask you perhaps in 6-12 months to come back and report the response you're getting, because you've asked in the next paper for support on pushing this. So that was that point. Anybody else got any questions moving forward in this paper? I think we have a couple of questions coming in from members who are not able to attend the day. One of them came from Jagdish Birdie, which was this, clause 4.4, bullet point 2, transferring responsibility of 2 day nurseries, Clare Gardens and St Quintins to local primary schools, making a 260,000 saving. Now, there has been a success, and I have to declare an interest. I've been involved with being governor of a school with a nursery.
Yeah.
But one of the characteristics of that was that the nursery that came to us was closed. Its building was released for other uses and was no longer a cost to the council. And the nursery was absorbed within the physical premises, albeit with some capital investment of an existing school. Now, the wording in this report has been to hand over the responsibility to another to a school rather than the nursery running itself, run under a school governance and safeguarding all the rest of it. Is the intention to physically move the nurseries into nurseries into primary schools, or to do just shifting getting rid of the overhead and management cost?
So we're negotiating with 2 primary schools about that at the moment.
Yeah, but the intent would be to get the 200. The real question is to get the 260,000 saving. Presumably, you'd have to achieve a move.
Well,
that without a move?
Not necessarily, because I think there's thinking about the staffing structures as well within that.
Yeah,
region.
and you have less duplication of senior management, that sort of stuff. But would you, if you didn't have the reduced cost of premises, would you be able to achieve the 260,000?
Yes.
You would. So
Yes.
you might achieve more than 260,000. That's a baseline cost.
That's it.
Baseline saving.
Yeah.
Okay. That was his question. Now I think Lorraine Law had a supplement to that, didn't he? This one here.
Yeah.
Okay. So regarding savings from transferring responsibility, yes, what happens if the primary schools can't sustain the nursery provision? Because you obviously have to have people take up the places.
Yes, I mean, well, then there's a question of sufficiency, and it's back to, have we got the right number of placements in the right number of areas? I think we have got a really great take up of our nursery provision. So initial analysis of demand would suggest that actually we do need those nurseries, and that we should have good uptake.
But again, where the success has been in terms of the uptake to date, it's been in premises that are relatively new, well maintained, or they've been refurbished recently. Some of the nurseries, both in the private sector and also our run nurseries and nurseries that need further capital investment to be, if the premise is physically going to remain there, they would need further capital investment. But has that been factored as well?
So the savings that we've put in place, do not account for any kind of capital expenditure. Right. So we're not looking at that right now. I think that the data that we've got has said, let's keep the nurseries. Otherwise, the saving proposal might have been to close them. But we feel that actually we've got the demands necessary to keep them open and for them to be managed within a reduced funding envelope. In
terms of revenue?
Yes.
Expenditure and income?
Yeah.
But if they require capital expenditure, that's not factored into this analysis?
No.
Right, so there would be a one-off capital input, perhaps, subject to survey or whatever,
yes.
Investigation.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a risk in if you like, pocketing the 260, because you'd have to amortise that sort of capital investment over a reasonable period if it was a substantial maintenance item or replacement equipment or something of that sort. So maybe this is a financial.
I think it would. So
you can't get 260 per annum saving if you have spent $500,000 and then call it 260 saving without recognising $500,000 investment.
There's no indication right now that is the case.
Right. Okay. So from initial knowledge of those sites, it's no substantial capital investment need. A bit of maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is, if I can take the other question that Abdullahi, it's a broader brush one, but this is not a big question. if the fair funding settlement delivers the expected 23.5 million reduction, which children's services would be most exposed particularly, or is this something that you can manage in the way you suggested in your budgetary planning?
So I think we're absolutely aware of the significant reduction in our funding envelope.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to be pragmatic about what we can do to shrink our spending further, whilst ensuring, or where we can, that we continue to deliver a quality service. So we're very much looking. I mean, the social care service is where we're most vulnerable, both in terms of reputational risk through the regulator, but also in terms of keeping children safe. So we want to ensure that we can continue with frontline services and then look at the management structures in order to create efficiencies there. I'd like to say that all frontline services are protected, but that's not the case. We'll have to be quite ruthless in what we have to deliver, what we think we deliver that manages demand through the system, because if we take out too many of our preventative services, what will happen is we'll see more children come into the care of the local authority, which we've seen elsewhere. It does happen, and the costs at that end, as you've seen, are excessive.
Yeah, I think this again comes up in the LGA's personal magazine. They've got a paragraph here which says they've welcomed the proposal to set out the best start to life strategy to transfer funding systems around early years.
Yeah.
Suggesting that it would be used flexibly to allow councils to support providers and invest in preventative approaches.
Yes.
Now, again, do you believe that that's just flying kites, or do you think there's any real prospect of real working groups that you might get some money out of?
Right. So we've had a little bit of money. I think we've got 117k to deliver the new Best Start in Life family hubs. That comes with another performance indicator where we have to get our good levels of development up from 69% to 79% by I think it's April 27. So ISOS have been commissioned. ISOS did some work with us around our sufficiency of primary school placements. They also do a lot of work in the early years space. They've been commissioned by government to look at how the Healthy Child Programme, the early years settings focusing on learning, and our care settings can use all of their levers across their three systems to lean into really supporting that target for good level of development. And part of the initiative around Best Start has been what's the home learning environment looking like, and what services do we need to support parents to promote their child's development in their home. So we're looking at that at the moment.
Yeah. And presumably all of this will go sequel into thinking of the children's and young people's strategy going forward, the new strategy for the next 4 years.
Absolutely.
So I think it perhaps, again, going back to a recommendation, it might be worth looking at how, because you asked this committee to make an input to that children's young people's plan.
Yeah.
Recommendation would be that we ask the scrutiny officers to work with yourself to come up with some means and dates.
Yeah.
Because we ought to report back to a meeting before the end of this year.
Yeah.
But the actual work can't be in a public meeting. It has to be in a workshop or something of that sort.
Yeah.
So if we can leave it with Luke and yourselves to come up with the best plan to do that.
Yeah.
And I know there are lots of pressures on your time. So
we are now required to publish a Best Start in Life strategy separate to the Children and Young People's Plan. We actually do that in any case. but we will have to tweak it to meet the new
But presumably be
requirements.
aligned, even if they're separate.
Oh, yeah, of course they are, yeah. It will need to be updated, given the new targets and the initiatives that have been implemented.
Okay.
Um,
But I'm
And
coming,
one of the things you might want to look at is that interface between the two documents. Might be
Yeah.
interesting.
and I think as part of that, we come back to that question that's, it was a bit of good news in the first magazine, but it did pose the question as to whether the government was really serious in supporting it with resources. So, I mean, it sounds a brilliant direction. Do we believe it? Is the question. Yeah. So, Luke, if you could knit that together, thank you very much. So, has everybody, David?
Very quickly, Sarah, you talk in paragraph 4.12, school roll numbers falling.
Yep.
More than the forecast is that there will be 3 that will be closed by March next year. I think. How many are the next 3 years?
Sorry, I'm just struggling to see that.
Okay, the reduction
Oh,
in
yeah,
funding.
yeah, 4.12, yeah.
It's the very end, the last half dozen words. And it's forecast to increase to 3 at the 31st of March next year.
Yeah, 3 schools in deficit.
In deficit, yes.
What about closing them?
So.
I'm not asking you for names,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah,
asking
yeah,
you,
yeah,
are you thinking
yeah,
about it?
yeah.
Is it a real
Yes.
likelihood?
I think we've been, I guess it was helpful for the whole school system that St Cuthbert made the decision to close its doors.
Yeah.
I think we're constantly looking at what the position looks like across the whole system because, decreasing roles means a decrease in funding, and we want to ensure that the offer across our schools remains as strong as it can be. I think there is some learning from other local authorities in how schools better work together to pool resources through federations. And so I think that would be the step before looking towards more closures.
Thank you.
I have to say that we're not the only borough that's had to close schools.
On the contrary.
Absolutely not.
And it's also, there are maintained schools and then there are faith-based schools as well, who have different jurisdictions. And pupils don't necessarily recognise orders in
Yes.
terms of where they go
Yep.
to school.
Yep.
So there's a degree of fluidity across the system.
Yeah.
Do you see any pressures in addition to that coming from reduction of funding due to the perception of central government of areas of deprivation around school?
It's a good question, but the part of the deprivation funding is based on the DACI, the impact, yeah. And last time, that's updated every 5 years, and last time it was updated, Inner London lost out quite a lot. Early indications, it looks like Inner London measures are going up, but I can't guarantee that, but that's very early indication. So we're just waiting to get those those updated measures, because I think that might not be what government expects either. So I suppose we have to keep an eye on it.
So it's a risk, but your perception as finance officers, with the best knowledge you have at the moment,
Yes.
is that risk might be smaller than we'd all thought.
Yes. Yes.
Because I know that several schools individually have thought that there's going to be big penalties on certain schools.
Yes, and for some schools it may be if they become
And of
less.
course, the area they sit,
whatever.
the area the school sits in physically is not necessarily the area that their pupils come from.
No, it would be the postcode of pupils on their own
Collectively.
collectively.
Yeah,
Yes.
right, okay.
Yeah, the proportion. Yeah.
But that's good to know. At least one risk is perhaps
Hope, well, we'll see,
not
but yeah.
gone away, but reduced a bit.
Yeah.
You're clear on that? Yeah. Okay. Fine. So if we could move on through the rest of the paper, if there are any other questions people would like to raise on this paper. Well, we came around the table first.
So on the last,
Anybody? Richard, have you got a question?
no.
No. Right. So Mary, please.
I just want to go back to that 1 million increase in spending. And, you know, are we having proper projections about how the long-term increase? So I was slightly confused about what this 1 million consists of, because you talked about care leavers at one point. This also seems to indicate that it's about high cost placements as well. It'd be nice to know what that projection is based on and what the long term, you know, because I'm assuming we can't carry on with the percentage of children needing this level of care rising and rising and rising. There's going to be a natural point at which it stabilises.
No.
When is that? Do we know when that is?
To answer your question, I mean, we have low numbers of looked after children, but really high proportion of our looked after children are 14 plus. And of course, they're the children transitioning into becoming care leavers. So the projections are based on actual numbers and the additional cost to us. And I guess your question's good is, should we be forecasting that over a longer period of time so that actually we've got a real sense of what the growth figures are? And the answer to that is actually it is yes. I think the issue around the cost of care is that it's going up at a rate that exceeds what our expectations and our forecasting was. Government centrally are trying to take some steps to influence that.
Can I pause there? We are going into the next.
Okay,
paper.
yeah, I'll
So,
stop.
Can we get a fuller answer to that
Yeah.
specific area? I think
Sure.
the particular point that came out of that, if you agree, is that maybe a longer term forecast
Yeah, I think
would
that's
bring a great perception of.
And a more granular
Yeah,
forecast,
okay.
is really not a more detailed
Yeah.
forecast about what you're projecting
Yeah,
is going to
yeah,
increase. Does it?
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And, you know, we have a good understanding of our looked after children numbers in order to be able to forecast that moving forwards. And actually, we need to be using that data to inform commissioning on the wider footprint across London.
Thank you. On the appendix, which goes into a bit more detail, I don't want to go through all of these, but the one that I picked up that I wanted to ask briefly about is interestingly enough, it matches some of the discussion of the previous one to do with adults learning and so on. The working together with different departments. You've got an item in here, children with housing alignment, and the benefit of longer term independence. A target of 7 additional care leavers will be supported to move to the final stage of accommodation.
Yep.
Now, this is a particularly interesting cross-departmental working case. That if you're working closely with housing officers and housing colleagues, you can come up with some joined up benefit to what you're trying to do and what they're trying to do. Do you think there are any other departments that you could get closer collaboration with from that
I
perspective?
highlighted earlier adult social care.
I mean, in some places have tried in the past. I think, Luke, you did a bit of research for us on this as to whether, you know, because some local authorities actually did run joint adult social care and adults and children. But the experience was not always successful in the past from the way it was done there.
So we refer to colleagues running people services as twin hatters,
Right.
having adult social care and children's services responsibilities. Yeah, I mean, across the country, a lot of local authorities detached them and went back to dedicated children's services and adult social care. And, you know, I guess the approach we've taken in K&C is to invest in by-borough children's services and by-borough adult social care services, rather than doing a one borough children and adult services, in order that you retain the expertise of the service that you're running.
So when you say there's opportunity for achieving more by working closer to
Yeah.
adult social care, but not suggesting should be a joint service.
Not a whole service,
Not a
no,
whole service.
absolutely not. I think there are opportunities to strengthen our transition pathway.
Yeah.
And that might mean putting a bit of adult social care in children's services or looking at children with disabilities moving to adult social care. I think probably there's a step in the middle, which is about a placement panel tracking those children who are coming up and making sure that there are proper arrangements for moving into adult social care
So-
in a timely way.
Coming from another world, I in the way would this be a way of looking at it? But instead of trying to merge organisations, that you actually do joint projects
Yes,
with objectives,
yes,
deliverables,
Yes.
outcomes. Yeah,
yes,
yeah. With
Absolutely.
the cost tag to them.
absolutely,
Yeah, so it's very focused without changing
absolutely,
big organisation or that reorganising joint.
absolutely.
That I think would be something that would be of great interest to us in the longer term. It may take more than the rest of this corporate year to get any feedback on that, but could we? Is this
That would
something
be
you report on?
really helpful. I think it'd be really helpful to bring it here.
The key question, would you be able to bring it to our last meeting? Have we got space?
No, we probably wouldn't have made
Or
enough
would it-
progress.
Okay, well, in which case it'd be a recommendation from this committee
Yeah.
to the host
Yeah,
May committee
Yeah.
then. Okay,
yeah, that'd be really super
So,
helpful.
we
Yeah.
could do that as a recommendation. That'd be fantastic. Any other
Request rather than a recommendation.
Well, request, sorry. No, you're probably quite correct. I stand sitting there
in that regard, we're angry.
Yeah, but no.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. The governance to put the correct term in it, please. And I think right, I think that's enough with this particular paper. Thank you on that one. But could we move on to Mary, have you got any further questions on this paper, or should we move on to the next one? Because I know you.
I'm going to drop a note to Sarah about something, if that's all right.
Actually, yeah, of course, of course.
Nothing to learn, sort of.
Okay, so the next paper we have is budgetary, statutory, and non-statutory spend. David, I think you wanted to ask a question on risk.
There are very many statutory requirements, commitments that we have to do, so
Yep.
we can see them. And I talked earlier on about politics, ultimately being about priorities. How do you prioritise? And I haven't counted them, but would appear to be at least 20 different statutory things. How do you prioritise who's what's important? How can you, do you say that they're all equally important? The answer is no, you don't. What are the, and related to that, but not quite the same, we get a number of provision or services from voluntary organisations.
Yeah.
To we give money.
Yes.
How do we measure their output?
Yeah.
And I want to know if it, and for some of the organisations, I'm not going to name them, but I could do privately. They require a modest amount of council money.
Yeah.
To be a gold seal, they're a good thing.
Yeah.
And that brings in an awful lot more money.
Yeah.
That could potentially mean you have to decide that one member of staff is not going to be employed.
Yeah.
So that voluntary.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that?
Yes, yes, and you know,
And completely over to you, that I've asked you a lot of questions, so can I?
yes. So I think that's absolutely right, David. In terms of the voluntary and community sector, given that a small amount of money that we invest can bring back more money, we have to consider. Do we need to reduce our staffing levels in order to ensure that we continue to fund those projects that benefit significant numbers of children?
Yeah.
And over time, we have reduced staffing to be able to do that. So I think that's a yes. In relation to our statutory service, I mean, you know, we're required to do them. So,
But at what level are you required to do that?
well, and so I guess the you know the quality of provision is always up for debate. I mean, I think, you know, when we talk about services to children, and it's always been everyone's ambition that we want this to be a great place for children to grow up and achieve their full potential. And that means sustaining a great education service, ensuring that we've got appropriate support to those children with special educational needs and disabilities and their parents, which is about providing timely support and safeguarding children and keeping them safe from harm, be that within their families or, as we know, our duties to children through contextual safeguarding are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We are seeing the risks around contextual safeguarding increase. We're all aware of our new statutory responsibilities around reducing the risk of serious youth violence and how we contribute to that. So, we have statutory duties. They all kind of fit into each other in terms of providing an environment that children thrive, are learning and are kept safe.
Do you have a methodology that actually enables you to balance these risks? Because it strikes me that one hard edge is we have to do these strategies.
Yes.
But then there's very little definition of what quality standard has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'd be criticised if they were very low.
Yeah.
But as long as they were equivalent to other places,
yeah,
then we wouldn't necessarily be criticised for that reason.
Yeah.
So that might not be up to the sort of standard that we would judge was sufficient to stop increasing numbers of people going into higher risk areas.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly the right point, is actually by investing in good quality services where relationships are the heart of what we do, we can see that our numbers of looked after children are low in comparison with other areas. That's where the real cost is. So we're always conscious of the things that we're doing to the whole system, not tipping the balance so that staff become overwhelmed, aren't able to develop those relationships, start to become risk adverse, and we see more children enter the care system.
In terms of, if you like, the general provision based on the needs triangle, the majority of that work is probably done by the schools.
So schools are the first home. So schools and health services are obviously the universal services and first line of support. And then it's, as children's needs escalate, ensuring that we can provide the right additional support at the right time in the ways that families are able to.
Now we've got a very tight grip of and knowledge of, or I would say you as your department has and your staff have. And the teachers in the school have too, and you work well together.
Yeah.
Do we have an equivalent alignment with health authorities?
Through our family hubs, our health visitors are co-located. So our pre-birth to 5 pathway is an integrated pathway. We can make it stronger, and as I alluded to earlier, through Best Start in Life initiatives, ISOS are looking at the levers that exist across the healthcare and education system in order to all lean in to good levels of development. Obviously, we have school nurses attached to schools, and I guess the real integration of health services is in the SEND provision, where we're looking at speech and language pathways, access to therapies, so that families don't feel they have to rely on diagnoses and education, health and care plans to get the support that they need. When we participated in the Delivering Better Value initiative, to reduce the overspend of our high needs block, it was all about invest in preventative services in order to bring costs down. But actually, you have to get families feeling that those preventative services are the right supports for them at the right time. Otherwise, very quickly, the relationship breaks down and they're into wanting the statutory provision through the education, health and care plan.
But that's a difficult balance to establish. And there are many schools that do that job very well, so exemplary practitioners. But with the kind of cuts that are going through the ICB and such, like the reorganisation of the ICBs in central London, and the testing of the idea there might be alternative care provider authorities, the reorganisation of the GPs and the pressures of finance to them, is the reality that you're getting the response that you get from the schools on the outside of that.
So the reality is that the funding across the public sector is reducing.
Yeah.
ICB has reduced their overheads by 30% last year, and they're looking at taking more than that out.
50%.
Exactly. Schools funding is becoming more stretched, as we know, and local authorities' finances, particularly in central London, are being pinched. So pinched, I mean, not stolen. So yes, it's a challenging environment. We're all having to think carefully about who's delivering what. We're trying desperately locally to ensure that divides aren't created. This is my lane, that's your lane. But inevitably, services are looking. We don't need to deliver that anymore, and we're having to think: do we step into that space, or now? Can we afford to step into that space, or do we have to maintain our own lines?
Yes, I mean, last meeting we had the lack of input from the health service into safeguarding, for instance, and so on in terms of the balance of resources. And I was wondering if it was the same in this area as well.
Totally. And you'll see from the next paper that it's making a very, very significant difference in relation to care placements.
Okay. Questions around the table. Pretty, David, you've already asked.
I just had one.
You got on? Good.
Please. Sarah, it's more of an observation. You talk about the subject. The figures that really stand out are all the transport figures. You've got Send Transport, 3.25, and you've got another travel care, another 117,000. There's somewhere else, there's another figure. I mean, it's almost unsustainable, these figures.
These figures are coming down.
These are much less than they were yesterday.
We've actually started to reduce the spend around SEN transport because we've been able to create more local provision.
Right.
So that's a positive.
And hopefully more Guardians Council take up the
So more independent travel, more local placements is reducing the reliance on SEN transport, which is a good thing.
I completely endorse Sarah's comment. They were,
Yes.
and they're now expensive, but a little bit less. So.
Yes. Yeah, and we do a lot of benchmarking with other areas across London to
Where do we-
ensure
where
that
do we
our
do that?
prices are right. Our costs are right even.
right.
Yeah.
Where do we come out?
We're big value for money. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's the cost of transport to place of service provision. But there's the actual reduction of the cost of the transport.
Yes.
Benchmarking. So
Yes.
there's also, historically, we did a big exercise of actually bringing provision within borough as well.
Yes,
Are there any other opportunities for bringing?
we're
services
constantly,
within
so I mean, our big issue was the Kensington Queens Mill bill.
Yeah.
And that's allowed us to reduce the spend significantly. But we're constantly looking at what more we can do. The uptake of independent travel is going up, and that's very helpful in bringing the spend down. So yeah, we're constantly looking at how we make that more efficient.
What I'm thinking of is that if some facilities that we own and operate are moved into other ones, whether bring up of those properties make it possible for us to bring some physical provision else inside of us.
So this is transport to and from school.
Yes. But the question, sorry, you mentioned the Queensville provision.
Yeah, because that being a local,
Yeah.
we were spending quite a lot of money on placements outside of the
That's
borough.
Yeah.
And of course, by creating more placements inside the borough, we've we've been able to
These
reduce the
are
cost
children.
of transport.
These are literally children who live within the borough.
So
So
these
it's
are,
not Westminster.
no,
they're not
these
coming
are,
in.
these are children who live within the borough who have special educational needs and disabilities to the extent that they require transport arrangements to take them to and from school. And we have a statutory responsibility to do that.
And sorry, just one other thing
Yeah.
in response to your question. Also, that a lot of our schools, because they're very inclusive, and a lot of them have special resource provision.
Yeah.
Those numbers have increased, which again has helped me, meaning those pupils, those children don't then go somewhere out of borough. So it's a part of an overall.
Particularly in these SEN autism provisions. And that
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
thing. Because we've both got special schools and then general schools with special provisions within
Yes.
them. Yeah. Okay, any other questions on, Mary, do you have any questions on this one?
No, thank you.
So shall we move on to the next paper? Statutory. Children with complex needs. We've already asked the question whether the government is going to get seriously involved in this, so different to rehearse that again, but I think that what you're saying is they're looking at it, what comes out of it.
Yeah.
And are they giving any indication as to when they'll make up their minds, or are they going to wait till 28 and 29?
Sorry, in terms of the government's working group around the cost of care.
Yeah.
Well, so a couple of things are going out. There's now a push through the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill to think, for regions to think collectively about regional care arrangements. That is how we work together to create more placements for children who become looked after in a broader footprint. And they're reducing some of the bureaucracy around the requirements for deprivation of liberty orders, which can create complexities in commissioning placements.
So when you say regionally, would that be London?
Yes, London would be a region.
Or
So,
Greater London?
so we're looking at the 33 London boroughs.
33 London boroughs.
Yeah.
And does this involve the mayoralty of London?
No, it sits outside of their responsibilities right now.
Okay.
But who knows? With is it the tourist tax that might go some way into the mayor's coffers? Maybe that could be used around, thinking together creatively about the cost of care.
And
You're more optimistic than I am.
Am I allowed to say that?
that's certainly this is a free speech area. But whether it will happen or not, maybe, I don't know. The question though is, do you have any perception of realistic time frame for them to at least come back with some form of framing of what they mean?
So right now, the directive is for local areas to start thinking together. Don't wait to be told what to do, like we were around the regional adoption arrangements. I think every local area in London is saying we're up for this.
Yeah.
There's been some really good work already around unaccompanied asylum-seeking children and the patterns of placements across London. It's quite interesting how many unaccompanied asylum-seeking children we're placing in foster care and closer to the originating borough, where actually, we might need to think about, are they the right children to be placing in those placements? Should we be utilising them for other children and young people? So there's some really, really interesting analysis that's coming out.
And that's you and your colleagues
across London, that's allowing us to ask some challenging questions of ourselves. And we know with unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, they don't tend to have existing ties to one borough or another, whereas local children do have ties to one borough or another. And when you start looking, it's fascinating. So we're asking ourselves across London some interesting questions. sharing data with each other in a much better way, in order that we can think together, well, actually, the rise in looks after children across London is associated with 14 plus, is associated with complex health issues, and also in relation to contextual safeguarding. So what could we do differently?
And also the cost of the market.
And one thing that's come out of, again, just learning from other areas, Essex, thinking about their response to the social care reform, which is dubbed Family First, rather than thinking about removing a child from their family environment because of contextual safeguarding issues, they're thinking about placing the whole family in a different area. Now, if we were working better on a pan-London footprint, that becomes something that we can all consider, rather than having to separate the child from their family and then placing them out of borough. Which again, thinking cost-wise, bearing in mind the cost of some of these care placements, becomes a much more economic solution.
What would be an example where you remove the whole family?
Yes. So where the risks are in relation to contextual safeguarding issues, so perhaps a pathway of criminality or exploitation or both, actually rather than removing the child, we say to the family, look, we can move you all out of the area, and that's probably a better response to your child's needs, and certainly his or her younger siblings.
Yes. And that would be in part to remove that family from others of similar ethnicity and culture where there is a problem or.
No, that's about, so where, so if a child, a young person is at risk of is associating with gangs, and there is a risk of serious youth violence, so that we are worried for their safety. At the moment, we're removing the child and placing them in a very expensive residential care placement. Whereas actually, given that the risks aren't associated with their family, they're outside of the family, the thinking is to move the whole family.
So have you done that yet?
No, so that's some of the learning we're taking from Essex,
right,
to think about how we might do that on a pan-London footprint.
And how does that relate to the challenges? How are we responding to challenges as a mention of the evidence-based Mockingbird initiative? Is it?
So that's completely different. So the Mockingbird initiative is a fostering initiative,
right,
and it's about wrapping more support around the foster carer, so that they feel better supported to take more challenging children.
I think that this paper states that there's a current crisis, and it's one that's getting to the point where it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So the question really is, there's lots of good work going on.
Yeah.
How do we get a measure, and how do we scrutinise, if you like, the process that's evolving? There's good work going on, but it's not criticism, but it's early stages. How do you see the timing of this, and when should this committee look again at this area, and what can it do now, apart from waving the flag that it's a crisis?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. So I think probably it's worth a scrutiny on an annual basis, given the cost that we're talking about. And I think I'd be really interested in the work that's going on pan-London and the impact that it's having. I think I'd also be asking, well, what are other areas doing, and how are we learning from them?
What's the pace of
Yeah. I mean, I think this is the first time. This is the first year, I think, where we're really seeing a significant rise in costs and the numbers of the children who are costing us so much money.
And you've articulated the fact that it's not the number of children, it's the price.
It's the cost. It's the cost of care. The price of care. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's the price of care.
So the number and severity of need is
broadly the same.
Broadly the same. It's the market cost of that care.
It's two things actually. One is the price of care, and the other contributing factor to our overspend is that health are contributing less.
I was thinking of them.
Yes,
Right.
significantly less.
And also Ofsted have created some new
Yes,
care, right?
yes. So Ofsted have increased the regulatory framework, which has meant that providers have put up costs. The price of care. So there was a girl who was placed in a secure bed in the north of the country, and the secure provision said, right, that's £30,000 a week, please, local authority. And the local authority had nowhere else to put her, so they agreed to pay £30,000 a week. 2 weeks later, the same girl went to the youth court, where she was remanded back into where she was sentenced to custody, and went back to the same placement, which was now a responsibility of the Youth Justice Board, at a charge of £7,000 a week. The same bed, the same child, cost to the Youth Justice Board 7,000, the cost for the local authority 30,000, and that is about commissioning arrangements, which is why the steer is look towards setting up regional care cooperatives or arrangements or initiatives, because that's the way that we will start to bring down the costs.
You need a physical place. You need staff who are sufficiently well qualified
Yeah.
to do that on a 24-hour, 365 basis.
Yeah.
And then you need some kind of commissioning and governance, or however you want to put it, performance requirement around it. So but what you're saying is it's specified differently, the same provision costs a
Yes.
different amount of money.
Yes.
Right.
You almost say it's more an allocation.
It's how it's so the YJB, the Youth
Yeah,
Justice
yes.
Board will commission placements in the provision in such a way that they're buying lots for less, whereas we're buying one for more.
Okay.
So by getting together with the rest of London
Exactly.
and making the equivalent of London
buying
forward,
power.
Yes, better buying power.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And if we share our data in terms of who are our looked after children, so generally, you know, how many age 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If we map that, we've got a real sense of, well, what is the need in terms of foster provision? We know that the makeup of families is different now. You know, in most homes, mum and dad are out to work full time and looking for childcare arrangements for their own children. So foster care is quite difficult to imagine these days. So we have to reimagine it. You know, do we pay? Is it a career? Do we think about targeting people who have retired who might want to do something with their time? How do we reimagine foster care so it's more desirable for people to do? And we can understand the numbers in terms of the younger children who are coming into care. And then for those young people with more complex needs, probably 12 plus, how are we understanding that in terms of the risk of contextual safeguarding? How do we create a system across London where we're moving families rather than children? What are the issues in terms of mental health needs? And so how are we working together to make sure that...
So I think there's, I don't know what other people feel, but I think there's a lot of what you've said here, which is not easily recognisable in a report. I mean, I think gone a lot further than the report.
It's a dynamic picture. What can I say? I mean,
Well, would it be
when we
reasonable for
wrote
us? Would it
this,
be reasonable for us, committee, to ask for an update to this paper, tackling, just outlining the points you've just made?
so I think that, I mean, yes, I think we're at early stages in developing something across the region.
That's your
looking at these
professional
issues.
position and professional judgment, and you put as many caveats in as possible. But what you have done is you've opened our eyes to some positive things that are happening. Which are
Yeah.
not quite
Yes,
as negative
okay.
and desperate as
Yes.
this paper, which
Yes,
just a shut door and there's no
Yes.
way forward.
yes,
So could I, the right way of asking for it is, could we have an
of
update?
course.
And it doesn't need to be a long paper, but if you just indicate the initiatives.
Yeah, of course.
And allied to that would be again, when it would be useful for you to come back, which showing the next stage of the development of those
Yeah.
initiatives. So you could, if you
Yeah.
just,
I think
if
that's
you
such-
show the structure of thinking
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And snapshot
Yeah.
where you've got to,
Yeah.
and then say, well, in 6 months or a
Yeah.
year's time, we can come back and give
Yeah.
you some more news.
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
And then we can pass it on to our successors.
Yeah, that's really
So,
helpful.
so Luke, is that, you got
Yeah.
that? Okay, thank you very much. Dave?
Quick question, Sari. On table 3 and table 4, you've got 14 individuals who are high cost.
Yes,
You talk about having a cohort, we have roughly 100, and we have had historically roughly
Yeah,
100
we have.
for a good long time.
Yep.
This may not be the case, but for the reasons you've said, with costs hopefully coming down sooner, but it suppose it just takes a little bit longer. What happens if instead of having 14 high cost individuals, we have 80?
yes,
Because it's not a huge increase.
Yep.
But it drives the coach and horses
Yep.
through your budget.
yes, yes. So I don't know quite how to answer that. Post
Are you
COVID,
aware of that? I think
yes.
is what I'm saying.
Post COVID, we've seen attendance levels go down,
Yeah.
and we've seen mental health issues go up.
Yeah.
Both those things are contributors
Absolutely.
to this cohort of children.
Yeah.
We're working really hard. We're really focusing in on what is our offer to children whose attendance is problematic, and what is our offer to children with mental health issues, so that we're thinking much earlier down the road before they reach this stage of needing care.
But I think you're getting quite a lot of response from most schools. Most schools that I know about or I visited have got a member of staff who's been is a named person on attendance.
Yeah.
But they have an active plan with leaders of different parts of the school. And they follow the children day by day, visit the families, all sorts of stuff like that. So, a lot of good practice. It's a difficult job, but it's a lot of good practice.
It is, and of course now it's a statutory responsibility for the local authority
Yeah.
to improve school attendance.
Okay.
Yes, with no extra money for that additional responsibility.
Any more points on this paper? So, Mary?
I just want to ask Sarah about the role of procurement in all of this,
Yes.
because what you're outlining very sensibly is a kind of pan-London,
Yeah.
pan-organisation, not
Yes.
just local authorities' approach to
Yes.
purchasing. And clearly that's crying out for framework.
Yes,
Have our own procurement team been leading this or
Yes.
playing a positive role?
so we've been a member of the West London Alliance for quite before I came here, which is, gosh, 6-7 years now. And actually they are putting frameworks in place. So dynamic purchasing vehicles and all kinds of things that allow for us to get the best value for what we commission. I don't think we've made the most of them, if I'm really honest. I think there's much more that we can do. And I think, but I do think they're in a good place to support us, pan-London, about developing something that's much more sophisticated than what we're doing right now.
And that requires quite a lot of depth of data
It does.
amongst all local authorities to drive the right purchasing.
It
method.
really does. It really does. But when you think the Youth Justice Board buying placements at
Yeah, I mean,
7,000,
it's a great example
Yeah.
of why we need to actually
Exactly.
do this. It's
Exactly.
a perfect example.
Would the
Thank
youth
you.
justice system sell us a few places?
yeah, probably at more than £7,000 a week.
Yeah, but it's only
It would be
£8,000
spent
limit.
as a man,
Fine.
fine.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Okay, everybody, are we
Yeah.
happy on this one?
Happy. Yes,
Okay,
well,
so
thank you.
can we thank you very much for that. And we have the work programme to go on to next, I believe. So I don't think we need
thank you.
officers to attend, do we?
Thank
Well,
you.
Sarah, thank you. Anita, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Happy
indeed.
New Year.
Yeah, happy Christmas.
Yes, and to you. Yes. Yes.
Hope you don't have to work too many extra shifts.
Yes. It's not feeling very Christmassy. That's
No.
But we're not there yet.
Right.
no, we're not there yet. Thank goodness.
At least the weather's warm anyway. Right.
There, it's not next.
So could you pass on to your whole team, so I know you're executive director, so can you pass on to your whole team, we're most appreciative, despite asking unreasonably serious questions too. We really appreciate the work that you and the people who work with you to the team across the borough.
Thank you very much. I will tell them. Thank you.
So work programme, Luke, do you want to take us through this briefly?
That's me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So the next meeting is the 5th of February, and so far we've got on the agenda, so partnership working with schools, school attendance and virtual school and virtual head teacher. Because it's an education themed meeting, I've spoken to officers about whether we wanted to get in and I've spoken to yourself, so whether we wanted to get in a teacher. They suggested, because we've got head teachers opted onto the board, but that might be enough, but wanted to see what the committee thought if wanted somebody else to come to the committee as well. Oh, one other point, we currently don't have a virtual head teacher, so the officer who is doing that role at the moment will be attending the meeting.
But the only hesitation I've got, I don't know, asking teacher's point of view, is that one of the hesitancies of one head teacher I spoke to is that they wouldn't want to be asking questions of themselves on the scrutiny panel, because you can't wear two hats at the same time. So in a workshop situation, I think we're well represented, and in terms of scrutiny, I think we're reasonably well represented. But in terms of a session or a paper, is it just a question of making sure that we're sure we've got enough heads?
I think it'd be, more so for the partnership working, so that the committee can understand how well schools find that. So because we'll hear from the officers how they think partnership working is going, but it also be good to hear from schools how they think partnership working is going, so you can triangulate the information.
No
views, but I do want to ask the question, it's about education. Might it be an opportunity to have it at a school? I'm not saying which school, but just have it in a different place from here that we're seen to be getting out.
But that's a good point to be seen to be getting out. The only trouble is that if you pick a school, then you don't pick the other schools. So
that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
It's less of a problem perhaps in the secondary sector, but in the primary sector, I think there's nothing.
I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to give you the idea and leave it to our two officers and to you to come up with a solution.
I mean, I'd be more than happy for us, but well, I say
I'm not sure how live streaming
is logistics.
I'm sure they must be able to live
stream. I mean, another way of doing it is that you get a school to describe their experience. Somebody from outside this and we're not so well represented in the secondary sector as we are in the primary sector.
So the secondary school.
Yeah.
I would be amazed if Holland Park, for example, or KAA didn't have that facility there.
Yeah. Would you like
We just look into it. I just wouldn't believe it.
But I think the North End will need to have a word with the schools forum, because my experience is that individual heads don't want to speak out of turn. From their cohort, they regard schools forum as a place. If the schools forum approved, if you like, or agreed, or the chair of the schools forum saw no problem with the particular school being chosen as a place to go. In a sense, we can go where we want to, but at the same time, we don't want to put noses up.
We can speak to the heads groups.
Yeah,
I think rather than schools forum.
Okay,
that
would be fine.
That's a consultative meeting on budgets mainly. But yeah, we can speak to the relevant officers about the heads groups and get a sense from them.
Yeah, and if we can't do the scrutiny there, we can do a visit there. That'd be another way.
I think visit would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A visit, I think, probably not easier to arrange governance terms.
We have done this in the past, I know.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to leave it with officers to any other, but one sort of generic point I wanted to bring up was that we have the action tracker and we have the working program. Such things as school visits, which we've decided to increase abilities to do, on neither list. They don't fit on either list. So how should we be? Should we just put them as a note at the bottom, or I don't know, how you got? Can you just text the work program?
Yeah. We can include it as text in the work programme.
Oh, okay. That'll be good. So we got schools visits, and was there any other visits that we've agreed to do? Because we've got limited time left.
There's various youth justice service, family comes again, I know committees looked at family hubs previous years.
But I think family hubs are developing a lot
Yeah,
in terms of what Sarah's been saying. The visit we did, it was early stages.
and there's some commission services as well, but I'm getting information from officers on
Okay.
what those are and.
And they'll come as a footnote or whatever how you want to do it in the work program. So that covers that. And there are any other issues in the work program. Any questions from Jackie or
No.
No, thank you.
I think we've reached the end of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.